Lawyers of Reddit, what are the craziest, yet legal, last will and testament stories you had to deal with? Story 1. Canadians' Will Sparks Baby Boom Contest. The Great Stork Derby was when a wealthy Canadian left a substantial amount of money to whichever woman had the most children in the 10 years following his death. It was upheld through numerous court battles, and 4 women tied with 9 children each. 2 women were also given smaller payouts. One had 10 children, 2 of whom were stillborn, and another had more than 9 kids, but a few were illegitimate. The guy also had some other interesting things in his will, and was a known practical joker. Story 2. Man deeds oak tree to itself. Where I went to college, there's an oak tree that was deeded to itself in a man's will. Now called the tree that owns itself, it sits in the middle of a road, and you have to go to one lane to drive around it. The story is that a man loved the tree so much as a kid that around the time he died in the 1830s, he gave the tree possession of itself. This technically wouldn't stand up in a court of law, but the county and local populace has accepted it and takes care of it. The original tree actually died, and the current one is a product of one of the acorns of the original. Story 3. Sons discover adoption through will. 2 sons of a really wealthy couple go to the family lawyer to have the will read. The lawyer is super nervous. He has known them both since they were kids. One son gets the entire inheritance and the other gets nothing. The explanation was that it should be passed through to blood relatives only. So that was the day he found out he was adopted. A lot of people asked what happened. I only heard of this through a friend, so I don't have the full story, but the reason it went to a lawyer, the person I know, was that it was being contested, so the disinherited son had to contest. I believe over the amount, not that his brother wasn't willing to give him anything. Crazy! Story 4. Dying man writes will on tractor. There was a case study in law school involving a man who was crushed to death by a tractor. He wrote his will in the tractor tire as he lay dying. The entire tractor wheel was then filed with the county register's office. Edit. I guess it was a fender. The fender is still on display. Story 5. Lawyer knows client's suicide plan through will. My dad is a lawyer and a friend of my grandpa, who was in his 80s and had end-stage cancer, made his will. He was a big fan of weapons and wanted to give them to my dad. He's a fan too. He left him 2 shotguns, a Glock, and a revolver. My dad told him it would be better to write it in the will, because my country's law says you can only own 5 weapons at a time. My dad had already 4 at the time, so he would have to give some up. But if you inherit them, it doesn't add to the limit. So they made a testament and he gave him the weapons, except for the revolver, because it was his favorite, and didn't want to give it away yet. My dad instantly knew why, but didn't say anything. 2 weeks later, the guy shot himself with the revolver. He still hasn't got the revolver because police still has it. He never told my grandpa that he knew, but he didn't want to take this guy's chance of ending his life on his own terms instead, if waiting for the cancer to win. If you feel unsafe with your thoughts, please seek professional help. Story 6. Rich uncle leaves estate to Elvis impersonator. Not a lawyer, but I had an experience with this years ago. A rich uncle of mine, a real crazy guy, not in the good way. He would come to visit us when we were kids, maybe once every 10 years. Last time he did, he brought us to a Denny's. He met my brother in an airport, was there for an hour before he got on another plane and went home. When he died, he had no friends. He had driven his wife to basically drink herself to death a few years prior. He left his entire estate to an Elvis impersonator. Everything. Story 7. French family burns estate items to end dispute. This large French farmer's family had been fighting each other for 15 years over their parents' estate. Everything and anything had been a weapon in this all-out war. Debts, spoils, barns, plots, cows, wills, and whatever. Defeats followed victories. Failures followed compromises, but progress was being made. And at some point, the killing zone turned to a standstill. Everything was agreed as long as no one talked about antiques, jewelry, furniture, kitchenware, photographs, laundry, or tools. A long, protracted period ensued, any goodwill tentative harshly discouraged before even being aired. Time went on with no issue in sight. Then someone suggested they just drag all the stuff into the farm's courtyard, pour petrol on it, and set it all afire. Everyone agreed. Story 8. Siblings fight over estate. Original will amended. Grandkids excluded. Not so much the original will itself, but the aftermath and greed of the siblings. Almost none of them talk anymore, 10 total. They're fighting over a couple hundred acres, most of which is swamp. The greed part is they had the original will amended. Every grandkid was supposed to get a portion in the original will, along with the siblings. However, the siblings nixed that via courts. They were going to then split the property among themselves, but the executor just didn't give a damn and let it sit for 30 years without doing anything. The rest wanted it done. So court cases, massive debts. Finally, the executor no longer has control. Thanks to the court cases, the property was in massive debt, which is sort of paid off right now, and now they are all too old or dead to do anything with it. If the will had gone through as originally stated, the family, which consists of about 35 grandchildren, would have all been happy there, or had money for selling the property, which is worth about $35,000 a lot. Now it's probably just going to go under eventually for non-payment. Even if I could buy some of it for cheap, I'm not touching it with 100-mile pole. Story 9. Father disinherits sons with harsh conditions in will, leading to equal division. Most of our wills we had written in the first place, so it was rare that there were any surprises. Also, for the most part, people already read the wills before they came to our office for the next steps. But there was the one. A man died with 3 sons. To the oldest, he had a paragraph written recounting a story where he had asked the oldest son what he wanted of some collection of tools in the shop, and the son had replied, "Nothing. It's all junk." The paragraph concluded with, "I shall honor his wishes and give him nothing." To the middle son, he had a paragraph recounting a conversation where the middle son had asked if the dad had made plans for his burial and funeral, etc., to make sure they were paid up ahead of time, unlike some other relatives had done. "Since he is so worried about whether my funeral is paid for, I shall honor his wishes, and so my burial and funeral arrangements shall be paid out of his share of my estate." The youngest son had managed to not piss dad off recently, and would have gotten most of the estate. By the time we'd finished reviewing the will, the 3 agreed to just ignore it, and divide everything equally among them, after paying all the bills, of course. Story 10. Family divided over conflicting wills in different languages, ending in tragedy. Not a lawyer, but worked for one specializing in contentious probate. A Spanish family, 4 children, their mother died. 3 of the 4 had a will written in English which they believed to be the correct one. The remaining one had a will written in Spanish, dated about 3 years later. The 3 claimed that the other had forced the mother to make the Spanish will after she had lost capacity. The guy was a real piece of work. One of the 3 with the English will had terminal cancer. It was her final wish to get mother's estate sorted before they passed. We were on tenterhooks throughout the case, rooting for them. Mediation happened, and the case was eventually sorted. The client with cancer passed shortly after. The whole thing was just incredibly sad. After one death and knowing another was going to die, the family was so divided. Story 11. Lawyer handles unusual will conditions. I work for a lawyer who does wills. We've had a lady put in her will that one of her adult sons was not to receive his share until he visited a dentist, and the other son lost 70 pounds. Another lady put in her will that she wanted her cats cremated with her when she died. We told her that's not going to happen. Human remains and animal remains do not get cremated at once. So she settled on cremated separately and joined together, then buried together. Typically, wills are about 10 pages for the average person. We had a lady who had a 56-page will. She detailed everything from her house to people, wooden ladle to so-and-so, toilet paper holder to so-and-so, magazine basket to so-and-so, etc. For every single item in this lady's house. We had a man put in his will that his family was to go to the zoo immediately after his burial that day. We thought that was more heartwarming. We had a lady that told us to put in her will that she wanted to be buried on her property next to her husband. She lived on a small rural property. Totally illegal to have human remains buried there. She refused to tell us whether her husband was cremated or not, and had dictated that she did not want to be cremated. Edit: her husband had died 5 or 6 years prior. So it's not as though it was 50 years where things like that may have been a little overlooked. We work with many people from a certain religion. A lot of people we do wills for leave at least 90% of their estates to the church instead of their families. Story 12. Grandfather's will reveals secret family, leaves house share to illegitimate child. Not a lawyer, but back in the 1940s, on the reading of my grandmother's father's will, my grandmother, her sister, and their mother found out all of his assets, including his 50% share of their house, had been left to an illegitimate child on the other side of the United States of America, USA. Not only did they find out that all those business trips were to see his mistress, that there was another woman and child, but also that they would now have to buy out a young woman they have never met to be able to still live in their house. So yeah, a rough day. Story 13. Widow discovers husband's secret second family in will reading. A widow came to our firm for the reading of her late husband's will. They'd been married for 30 years, no kids, and she expected to inherit his estate, including their home and savings. During the reading, it was revealed he'd left half his assets to a woman and 2 children in another state. It turns out he'd been maintaining a second family for over a decade, complete with a house and college funds. The widow was blindsided, as he'd never given any indication of this double life. The will was legally sound, but she contested it on emotional grounds. The case dragged on, and eventually, they settled out of court, with the widow keeping the primary residence but splitting the liquid assets. It was heartbreaking to see her process the betrayal while grieving. Story 14. Eccentric millionaire leaves fortune to pet parrot. We had a client, an eccentric millionaire with no close family, who left the bulk of his estate, about $3 million, to his pet parrot. The will specified that the bird was to live in luxury, with a trust fund for a custom-built aviary, gourmet food, and a dedicated caretaker. The parrot's inheritance was to be managed by a local animal sanctuary, with strict instructions on its care, including weekly vet visits, and a specific playlist of classical music to be played daily. The distant relatives tried to contest it, arguing undue influence and mental incapacity, but the guy had been meticulous. Multiple psychological evaluations proved he was of sound mind. The will held up, and the parrot lived better than most people until it passed a few years later. The remaining funds went to the sanctuary. Story 15. Elderly lady leaves house to helpful bus driver. I worked at an attorney office, and a little older lady gave her house and her belongings to a bus driver. The bus driver was nice to her and would help her. We were all waiting for hell to break loose when her family found out. Story 16. Airman requests burial in casual attire and World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE belt. A military lawyer here had a young client come in for a will before deployment. He put a request to be buried in blue jeans, a Chris Jericho t-shirt, and his replica WWE Championship belt. Happily, this airman didn't meet any misfortune on his deployment. Story 17. Dying client records will on smartphone sets precedent. Not a lawyer, but a paralegal. We had a dying client in the hospital change her will by recording it on a smartphone. It set a precedent and made the local paper. The lawyer in question has the page from the newspaper framed in his office. Story 18. Recent widow inherits everything. Children disinherited amid gold digger accusations. I had one where the children were disinherited and everything went to a woman 30 years younger than their father. She had married the decedent fairly recently, and the gold digger accusations started immediately. That one took a while to resolve. Story 19. Wealthy Texan forces kids to waste money. Years ago, there was a very wealthy businessman or investor from Texas who passed away. In his will was a message to his 2 adult children about how he raised them regarding money. He was frugal, watched every penny he spent, and insisted they do the same. He knew he had been probably too obsessive about this, so in his will, he earmarked $100,000 to each of them that he insisted had to be spent stupidly on something he never would have approved of, to make up for all the times he criticized their spending in the past. His accountant would be the judge, to ensure that they were bad investments. I can't remember how the son spent it, but if I recall correctly, the daughter bought a yacht in a marina 1,000 miles away from her home, and she didn't like boats. Story 20. Parishioner donates millions for church organ. A well-to-do parishioner was always advocating that people follow his example and become organ donors. When he died, he actually donated over $2.5 million so the church could replace its organ. As the pastor observed, he donated organs both ways. Story 21. Wife leaves money to lover, insults husband. Frank, if your fat monkey heart is still beating, then congratulations. I want you to know that I hereby leave all of your money to Bruce Mathis, the real father of my children, a handsome man with a beautiful soul and a nicer penis. This lady was such a jerk. Story 22. Great-grandmother leaves daughter, just $1. My grandmother, arguably a pretty terrible person, sold all of my great-grandmother's possessions and her house during a long hospital stay. The great-grandmother changes will at the age of 99 to leave $1 to her daughter. Absolute savage. Story 23. Huge estate left to Humane Society. A woman with a huge estate left 1/3 of it to the local Humane Society. The amount was so large, even the Humane Society was like, what are we even going to do with all of this? The society put the money in savings for future years' use. It was a great way to ensure a no-kill operated for many, many years. Story 24. Grandparents send will before short ferry trip. I'm not sure this counts because it wasn't in the will but came along with it. My grandparents printed out copies of their will to send to all their kids with an attached cover letter that basically said, we're going on an hour-long ferry journey, so thought we should prepare for the worst. Story 25. Elderly woman leaves estate to volunteer who befriended her. Not a lawyer, but this a will story my great-aunt told me. It's basically just a lot of jealousy and family drama. I'm not good at telling stories, so please bear with me. There was an old woman, we will refer to her as Granny, or G so I don't have to keep saying old woman. Granny was a sweet old lady, relatively healthy, but had some trouble getting around and taking care of herself. Her family was the typical greedy and money-hungry scenario, only calling when they wanted something. I don't know the full story involving the family, but they stuck her in a nursing home and moved far away. To everyone's knowledge, Granny had very little money, but she still owned her property, a small house her best friend, my great-aunt, took care of, and her car, a customized classic Volkswagen VW Bug. The nursing home had volunteers, people to come and talk to the residents, play board games with them, basically keep them occupied. Granny's favorite was a newer volunteer, a 19-year-old female, who I'll refer to as V. I only met her a handful of times, but V was a very soft-spoken and kind girl. V was the only volunteer Granny liked. Because they had many things in common, one of those things being their mutual love for a specific kind of car. Hint, hint. Over the next year and a half, V continued to volunteer about twice a week. Soon, Granny started to get sick. Her health started to rapidly decline. Did her family come to see her? Nope. Until her last days, she only had V and my great-aunt. Granny died. Some of her family came to the funeral, but pretty much everyone only cared about the will. My great-aunt said that the only ones who seemed sad at the funeral were herself, V, and a few of Granny's old friends. When it came time to read the will, there was a big shock. It turned out Granny had a decent amount of money stashed away, about $10,000. The family had no idea, only my great-aunt knew about it. A small amount of that was split up and given to select family members, but the rest was divided and given to my great-aunt and V. Versus was in complete shock. The family was mad. A few other things were given to family, select items that didn't hold a whole lot of value. But it was about to get worse. The car I mentioned earlier, the classic Bug, Granny's teenage granddaughter had her eyes on that car since Granny was put in the nursing home. Everyone expected her to get it once G passed. That didn't happen though. Like I said, one of the things V and G bonded over was their love for bugs. G had shown V lots of pictures of her bug, and V enthusiastically told G all about her own bug. My great-aunt wasn't really a fan of the car. "I like trucks," she said, and she said that she and Granny discussed leaving the bug to V in the will, which is exactly what G did. If the family was mad about the money, they were furious about this car. I've seen pictures, this thing was nice. Granny probably loved it more than anything, maybe even my great-aunt, and according to her, V cried her eyes out, like she had to leave the room. She told my great-aunt, "I can't accept it. I'm not family, that car should be yours." And my great-aunt spent over an hour and a half convincing her that G wanted her to have it. Some family members followed V outside and started screaming at her, threatening to sue her, claiming it was part of a plan V must have created. What? Befriend a lonely old woman and take her fortune. Telling her she didn't deserve any of what she got and calling her awful things. One of the calmer relatives got things settled down, and my great-aunt got V out of there. It's been a few years. My great-aunt and V still talk, and V still has Granny's bug. As far as I know, after the reading of the will was over, V got a lot of nasty messages online, but was otherwise fine. One of the family members did contact a lawyer, but they must have told them there was nothing that could be done, since V never actually got sued or anything. Story 26. Recluse leaves fortune to nurse and charity, excluding family. Not a lawyer, but my grandfather was a recluse, who amassed a small fortune through savvy investments. He had no close family, except for a distant niece who never visited. In his last years, he hired a live-in nurse, who took excellent care of him. When he died, his will left everything, the house, stocks, and cash totaling over $500,000, to the nurse and a local animal charity. The niece contested it, claiming undue influence, but the will was ironclad with witnesses and a video recording of him explaining his reasons. He wanted to reward kindness shown to him in life, not blood ties that meant nothing. The court upheld it, and the family was left with nothing but regrets for not reaching out sooner. Story 27. Man requires heirs to marry specific nationalities for inheritance. A client left his estate to his 3 children, but with a condition. Each had to marry someone of a specific nationality, one Italian, one French, one German, within 5 years to claim their share. He was a history buff, obsessed with European cultures. The will was legal, as it didn't violate any laws against discrimination in private bequests. 2 kids complied and got their money. The third refused on principle and forfeited. It caused a family rift, but the court said it was his money, his rules. Story 28. Woman donates body to art installation in will. An artist willed her body to be preserved and displayed as part of a permanent art installation in a museum. She specified the pose, clothing, and even the lighting. Her family was horrified, but she had no immediate heirs, and the museum agreed. It was legal under body donation laws for scientific or artistic purposes. The exhibit opened a year later, sparking controversy but honoring her wishes. Story 29. Businessman leaves company to employees with voting shares. A successful businessman with no kids left his entire company to his employees via a trust, giving each a voting share based on years of service. The will stipulated that profits be shared equally after a reserve fund. His siblings tried to contest, but he had documented his intent clearly. It turned the company into a co-op, and it's thriving today. Story 30. Elderly man buries treasure with clues in will. An adventurous old man buried part of his estate in gold coins on his property and left clues in his will for his grandchildren to find it. The will said if unsolved in 10 years it goes to charity. They solved it after a family treasure hunt. Legal as it was his property, and no laws broken. Story 31. Widow leaves inheritance contingent on pet care. A widow left her fortune to her nephew, but only if he cared for her 5 cats until their natural deaths, with vet records submitted annually to the executor. If any cat died unnaturally, he forfeited. He did it for 12 years. Family thought it cruel, but legal. Story 32. Inventor patents idea posthumously, through will. An inventor willed his unfinished patent idea to a university, with instructions to complete and patent it, royalties to fund scholarships. The university did, and it's now generating funds. Legal as intellectual property can be bequeathed. Story 33. Family farm divided by lottery, in will. A farmer left his land to his 4 sons, but required them to draw lots for parcels, via a lottery system, detailed in the will. It prevented fights, and all agreed it was fair. Legal and clever. Story 34. Philanthropist leaves money for random acts of kindness fund. A philanthropist created a fund in his will for random strangers to receive $1,000 grants for kind acts, administered by a foundation with applications. It's distributed hundreds so far. Unique but legal. Story 35. Man leaves entire estate to childhood friend who never asked for anything. A client, a widower with no children, came to us to draft his will. He'd made a fortune in real estate but lived modestly. His only close connection was a childhood friend who'd stayed in touch over decades, never asking for a dime despite the client's wealth. The will left everything, house, investments, even his vintage car collection, to this friend. The friend was stunned at the reading, saying he thought the guy was just doing okay. Distant cousins tried to contest, claiming the friend manipulated him, but the client had recorded a video explaining his gratitude for the friend's loyalty. The will held, and the friend donated half to charity in the client's name. Story 36. Woman's will demands her art collection be burned. An eccentric painter left a will instructing that her entire collection of unsold paintings, hundreds of works valued at over $1 million, be burned upon her death. She believed her art was too personal to be commodified. Her gallery and a few collectors contested, arguing it was a cultural loss. The executor, torn but bound by duty, followed through, and the burning was documented. It was legal, since the works were her property, but it sparked heated debates in the art world. Story 37. Farmer leaves land to rival neighbor as final jab. A farmer with a long-standing feud with his neighbor left his entire 200-acre farm to that neighbor in his will, explicitly stating it was to, quote, rub it in his family's face. His kids, who expected to inherit, were furious, as they'd worked the land their whole lives. The will was airtight. with a letter explaining he felt his kids were ungrateful. The neighbor sold the land and retired comfortably. The family tried to contest but lost. Story 38. Woman leaves inheritance to book club over family. An elderly woman, estranged from her kids due to years of neglect, left her modest estate, about $200,000 and her home, to her book club of 15 years. The club, a group of retirees, used the funds to create a community library in her name. Her children, who hadn't visited in years, tried to argue coercion, but witnesses from the club testified to her clear intent. The will stood, and the library is still running. Story 39. Man requires heirs to live in his haunted house. A wealthy recluse left his sprawling, supposedly haunted mansion to his 3 nieces, but only if each lived in it alone for 1 month to claim their share. He claimed it would, quote, build character. 2 nieces completed the challenge, reporting creepy noises but no proof of ghosts. The third refused, citing fear, and forfeited her portion. The will was legal, and the house was later sold by the 2 who complied. Story 40. Couple leaves fortune to reenact their wedding annually. A devoted couple left their $2 million estate to fund an annual reenactment of their 1950s wedding at their local church, open to the public as a celebration of love. The will detailed costumes, music, and even the menu. The church agreed, and it's become a quirky town tradition. Their distant relatives grumbled but couldn't contest, as the couple had no direct heirs. Story 41. Scientist donates brain to specific research lab. A neuroscientist with a terminal illness willed her brain to a specific research lab studying Alzheimer's, where she'd worked decades earlier. She included detailed instructions for its preservation and study, bypassing standard donation protocols. Her family was upset, wanting a traditional burial, but her prior consent forms made it legal. The lab published a paper based on her donation years later. Story 42. Man leaves money to fund ex's dream vacation with a catch. A man left $50,000 to his ex-wife, who'd left him 20 years prior to fund her dream trip to Paris. The catch: she had to scatter his ashes in the Seine River during the trip. She initially refused, still bitter from their divorce, but eventually complied to claim the money. The executor verified it with photos. Legal, but it stirred old wounds. Story 43. Widow's will creates scholarship for struggling single moms. A widow with no kids left her $300,000 estate to fund a scholarship for single mothers pursuing higher education. She'd been a single mom herself and wanted to help others like her. The will specified that recipients write her a letter about their dreams, to be kept in a memorial book. Her siblings tried to contest, but the will was upheld, and the scholarship has helped dozens of women. Story 44. Man leaves estate to fund a town's fireworks show forever. A small-town businessman, known for loving local festivals, left his $1.5 million estate to fund an annual 4th of July fireworks show in perpetuity. The will detailed the scale, colors, and even music to accompany it. His kids, who expected the money, were livid but couldn't break the will. The town still puts on the show, and it's become a regional draw. Story 45. Taxidermied moth and Furby legacy. When my great-aunt, whom I barely had any relationship with, died, I discovered that in her will, she left me a taxidermied giant silk moth that she had hanging on her wall. Evidently someone told her about my love for bugs. I still have it, and it's one of the coolest things in my collection of odd knickknacks. She left my cousin a Furby. Story 46. Unexpected $10,000 from estranged grandmother. My maternal grandmother disowned my siblings and I when my parents divorced because my father got custody. I was 9 years old. When I was about 21 years old, I got a letter from her, as if never out of touch. It's been a while since I last wrote, hope college is fun type thing, and learned she was losing her memory and forgot we were estranged. I felt no need to make a dying old woman relive her mistakes, so I wrote back with similar pleasantries. We ended up writing cards and letters a handful of times over a couple of years. When she passed away, she left me $10,000, which was very unexpected. I felt uncomfortable having the money considering my siblings got nothing, so I donated half, used the other half to help pay for my brother's wedding, and walked away feeling weird but good about bringing comfort to an ailing old lady who forgot she was a huge jerk to a bunch of children. Story 47. Elephant Tie for Intimidation. My grandfather passed a few hours ago, but my grandmother came to me after with a navy blue tie featuring pink elephants. Ridiculous looking, but she said that he wore it to intimidate people in business, as someone willing to wear such a ridiculous tie doesn't care about what people think. That scares people, so he wanted me to have it so I could do the same. I will add an edit with a picture later. To everyone, thank you. Edit 2. It's not as in your face as some of you likely thought, but I love it. Story 48. Penny and nasty comments for family. My grandma left a penny and a nasty comment to almost every person in the will, all of her sons and daughters, even a few grandchildren, except for me. I got $1,000. Thanks, Grandma. Story 49. Chocolate bar delay for cousins. Not a lawyer, but my grandpa put in his will a chocolate bar for everyone, one of his grandkids. Well, I have like 12 cousins, and very difficult to track down where a couple of them went. All his estates and money he had in will was at a standstill for months because they couldn't find my couple cousins. Had to show court we put in effort to hire someone to track them down, etc. The lawyer that was helping execute the will was blown away that this lawyer allowed this and why he wouldn't highly suggest not to do it. But I'm not complaining, cause I got a Toblerone out of the deal. Edit. Thanks for first gold star. Story 50. Tools, money, and a dog with conditions. My grandpa gave me all his tools, which sounds dumb, but we are in the same trade, and it was a real life changer. It included a lift and his old shop truck, so I pretty much got everything to start my own shop, but a building. He also left me a pretty good chunk of change, and his dog Tanner, as long as I made sure his live-in girlfriend at the time got nothing at all, and I told my uncle he was fat, and his wife was going to leave him if she couldn't find his pecker. There was literally a script inside the will. It all went smooth, and my uncle lost weight. And Janice is an A-jerk, and it turns out Tanner is kind of an A-jerk too. But it's okay because my grandpa was kind of an A-jerk, a good one but still sort of an A-jerk, and they have the same mustache and eyebrows, so now I come home from work every day and get stared down by my grandpa while I poop. Story 51. Great uncle leaves dollar to daughter and conditions beating for son. To my daughter Anne, who created my beautiful granddaughter Jane, and her dear fourth husband John, who laid hands on my Jane, I leave $1, you money-grubbing jerks. To Jane I leave all of my monetary assets, save $5,000, and my best gun, which I leave to my son Bill, on the condition that he beats John bloody during the time between my funeral and my burial. Jane, bail your uncle out of jail, please. Other than names, this is the exact wording of a great uncle's will, part of it anyway. At age 9, Jane told her mother that John had molested her, and her mother told her she deserved it for being a jerk. So great uncle took Jane in and raised her. And his 2 kids got exactly what it says. His son also got a truck and technically a house, although he only kept it until Jane was a legal adult and could afford the tax on it. Bill got full custody of Jane when his father died, and he put every penny of her money into a trust fund to mature when she was 25, because he felt like his sister would try to get the money. He was right. And in case anyone wondered, yes, Bill got his $5,000. He didn't get arrested though because John had a warrant on him, so they didn't dare call the cops. Bill did kindly inform the police of his whereabouts a few weeks later. Story 52. Rich woman leaves estate to hairdresser's children. When I was a clerk in law school at the State Court of Appeals, the adult children of a rich woman tried to invalidate the will. Basically, the woman was worth about $8 million, and all the children were working professionals, earning 6 or 7 figures. Well, the woman had used the same hairdresser for multiple years and left a considerable amount in a trust for the hairdresser's children's education. The remainder of the estate was given to different charities. Basically, the kids were mad they didn't get a cut. Edit. A lot of people asking how it turned out. Truth is, I don't know. We remanded on some procedural issues and I never followed up on it. Story 53. Husband wills body to be stuffed and left on couch. In my trusts and estates class in law school, we read a case about a man who left everything to his wife, but only if she got his body stuffed and left it on the living room couch forever. Luckily for her, the court invalidated that part of the husband's will. If I recall correctly, part of the reasoning was that it would make it impossible for her to date or remarry if she had her husband's creepy dead body glaring at anyone who came to see her. Story 54. Old man leaves all to mistress, wife gets goldfish. I used to work for an accountant and we used to make wills as well. An old man, probably around 70 years old, left all his money to his mistress, while his wife only got the goldfish. I had to tell him that if his wife contested it she would most definitely win. He said he didn't care. Edit used to use 2 times. If there is a lawyer on this forum, can you please answer some of these questions? We did a little section on law while doing my accounting degree, and to my knowledge the wife has a high chance of winning the case. For example, if all he had was furniture in the house, and the house itself, then the wife would get it all regardless of what the will said. Just to clear up confusion, I'm from Australia, not United States of America. I thought it was in there, but it wasn't.